The first scream cut through the afternoon silence like a knife. Aiden looked up from his computer screen, confused. The open-plan office was usually a dull, monotonous place filled with quiet murmurs and the soft clatter of keyboards. But now, something was wrong. Another scream. Louder. Closer. Aiden stood up, glancing toward the glass-walled conference room where a group of executives had been in a meeting just moments ago. Now, they were pressed against the glass in sheer terror as one of their own, Mr. Reynolds, a usually composed and serious man, clawed at them with unnatural aggression. His eyes were milky white, his skin gray and peeling. Aiden's stomach twisted. What the hell? Then chaos erupted. A woman near the break room let out a blood-curdling shriek as another infected worker lunged at her, sinking yellowed teeth into her shoulder. Blood sprayed across the beige carpet as she collapsed, twitching violently. Within seconds, she stopped moving. And then, impossibly, she started again. "Get out," someone yelled. Panic surged through the office as people scrambled for the exit. Desks toppled, chairs flew, and screams filled the air. Aiden's survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed his phone, wallet, and a metal paperweight from his desk, his only weapon. The elevators were jammed with frantic coworkers, some pounding on the closed-door button while others screamed as zombies tore into them. Aiden didn't waste time. He ran for the emergency stairs. A security guard, blood dripping from his mouth, lunged at him from the hallway. Aiden barely dodged, smashing the paperweight into the guard's head. The impact was sickening, but it wasn't enough. The zombie groaned and turned, eyes locking onto him. Heart pounding, Aiden sprinted down the stairwell. Below, more screams echoed. He hesitated, torn between going up to the rooftop or down to the lobby. Then the decision was made for him. A woman's body tumbled from above, her lifeless eyes staring at him as she crashed onto the landing. Aiden ran down. The lobby was no better. People were running in all directions, some already turning into the undead. Blood painted the walls. A man in a business suit was slamming a fire extinguisher into a zombie's skull, grunting with effort. Aiden pushed through the chaos. The front doors were open, but stepping outside felt like walking into hell itself. The city was in complete meltdown. Cars were crashed on the sidewalks, their drivers either dead or reanimating. People were sprinting down the streets, chased by groaning figures with blood-stained mouths. The distant wail of sirens mixed with the sound of car alarms, gunshots, and horrifying, inhuman shrieks. Aiden's mind raced. Where do I go? How do I survive this? He had no answers. A woman grabbed his arm, wild-eyed. Please, help me. My son. Before she could finish, a zombie tackled her from behind, dragging her to the pavement. Aiden took a step back, his breath ragged. He couldn't save her. All he could do was run. And so he did. Aiden ran. His breath was ragged, his heart pounded like a war drum, and his legs burned from sprinting through the chaotic streets. The city had become an open graveyard, filled with the dying, the dead, and those who had turned into something worse. He darted through an alleyway, trying to put as much distance between himself and the horde gathering near his office building. The distant wail of sirens and the occasional gunshots told him one thing: no one had control over this situation. It was complete and utter collapse. As he emerged onto a side street, he saw the same horrifying scenes playing out everywhere. People trapped in their cars, screaming for help as zombies pounded on their windows. A man swinging a tire iron wildly at two approaching undead, his panicked strikes missing their marks. Aiden knew he couldn't stop. He had no weapon, no supplies, no plan. He needed to get out of the city. But how? The main roads were gridlocked, littered with crashed vehicles and burning wreckage. The bridges leading out of the city were likely overrun. If he didn't find a way soon, he'd be trapped. Think, Aiden. Think. He pressed himself against the side of a building, trying to catch his breath, when a noise caught his attention, a group of survivors running in his direction. 3 men and a woman, all looking terrified but determined, sprinted toward a nearby parking garage. One of the men carried a crowbar, another had a backpack. They had supplies, weapons, something Aiden desperately needed. For a split second, he hesitated. Should he approach them? Would they even let him join them? Or worse, would they turn on him? His decision was made for him when a fresh wave of zombies rounded the corner, drawn by the noise of the running survivors. "Move," one of the men shouted. Aiden made a split-second decision and ran toward them. "Wait. Let me come with you." The woman turned, her eyes filled with fear and hesitation. But the man with the crowbar, tall, muscular, and looking like he had seen his fair share of fights, nodded. "Fine. But keep up, or you're on your own." Aiden didn't argue. The group sprinted into the parking garage, their footsteps echoing through the concrete structure. They needed a car, any car, that would get them the hell out of here. The man with the backpack, Jonas, yanked out a set of keys and beeped a nearby SUV. "Get in." Aiden didn't need to be told twice. He dove into the back seat as the others piled in. The woman, Lena, slammed the door shut just as the first zombies reached the garage entrance. Jonas turned the key. The engine roared to life. But before they could celebrate, something slammed against the passenger window, a half-rotted zombie, its face pressed against the glass, teeth gnashing. More followed, drawn by the sound of the engine. "We need to go." "Now," the crowbar man, Devin, growled. Jonas floored the gas pedal. The SUV shot forward, plowing through a group of undead. Their bodies crunched sickeningly under the wheels, but the car didn't slow down. They sped through the parking garage's exit ramp and out into the apocalyptic nightmare that was once their city. For now, they were alive. But the real question remained, where could they go that was still safe? The SUV roared down the debris-strewn streets, weaving between abandoned cars, wreckage, and the occasional stumbling corpse. Aiden gripped the back of the passenger seat, his knuckles white. The city was collapsing around them, and there was no sign of rescue, no police, no military, just chaos. "We need to get out of the city," Lena said, her voice strained. Jonas, his hands tight on the steering wheel, nodded. "Highway's out of the question. Too much traffic. We'll take the side roads, head for the suburbs." Devin, the man with the crowbar, grunted in approval. He sat in the front seat, constantly glancing at the side mirror. "We should check for supplies. We don't know how long we'll be out here." Aiden agreed. They needed food, water, weapons, anything to survive. But something about Devin's tone put him on edge. There was an authority in his voice, like he was used to being in charge. Aiden had barely been with them for 20 minutes, and already, he could feel the group's dynamics shifting. The SUV screeched around a corner, the tires skidding slightly. They were in a residential area now, rows of houses with broken doors, shattered windows, and blood splattered on the sidewalks. Some houses burned, black smoke curling into the sky. Jonas slowed the vehicle near a gas station. "Might find something in there." "No way," Lena objected. "That place has already been looted." Devin turned in his seat, fixing his cold gaze on her. "We check anyway. If there's even one bottle of water left, it's worth it." Jonas sighed, pulling the car up near the entrance. "We go in fast and quiet. Grab what we can and get out." Aiden didn't like this. The place looked deserted, but that didn't mean it was safe. The group moved carefully inside, weapons raised. The store was a mess, shelves knocked over, broken glass everywhere, and the smell of something rotting in the back. They split up. Aiden grabbed a backpack from behind the counter and started shoving in whatever he could find, bags of chips, a few cans of food, even a couple of protein bars. Not much, but it was better than nothing. Jonas and Lena were at the fridge section, grabbing water bottles. Devin, however, had gone toward the back. Aiden's stomach churned. Something wasn't right. Then he heard it, the unmistakable click of a gun. He spun around. Devin stood by the exit, a pistol aimed right at them. "What the hell are you doing?" Jonas demanded. Devin smirked. "Taking what I need." Aiden's blood ran cold. "You son of a..." Jonas started, but Devin cut him off. "Shut up. You knew this was coming." He gestured with the gun. "You're all a liability. I work better alone." Lena took a step forward, her fists clenched. "You wouldn't have made it this far without us." Devin shrugged. "And I don't need you anymore." He gestured at Aiden. "New guy, drop the bag. You can stay alive, but I'm taking the car and the supplies." Aiden hesitated. Jonas lunged. The gun went off. A deafening blast filled the air as Jonas crumpled to the ground, clutching his side. Lena screamed. Aiden reacted without thinking. He grabbed a glass bottle from the shelf and hurled it at Devin's face. It shattered, making him stumble back, cursing. "Run!" Aiden shouted. He grabbed Jonas, pulling him toward the door as Lena followed. Devin fired again, but the shot missed. Before he could aim properly, a new sound filled the air, moaning. Zombies. The gunshots had drawn them. Dozens of them poured into the store, clawing at the shelves, knocking things over. Devin turned to fire at them, but it was too late. The last thing Aiden saw before he ran was Devin disappearing beneath a mass of undead. The three of them barely made it back to the SUV. Jonas was bleeding badly, his breath coming in short gasps. "We need to move," Lena said, her voice shaking. Aiden floored the gas pedal, speeding away from the store. The city had already proven one thing: the zombies weren't the only monsters left. Aiden's hands were shaking as he gripped the steering wheel, speeding through the ruined streets. Jonas lay slumped in the back seat, his face pale, a hand pressed tightly against the bleeding wound on his side. Lena was beside him, desperately trying to stop the blood loss with a torn piece of her shirt. "Just hold on," she whispered to Jonas. "We're almost there." Aiden swallowed hard. "Where are we going?" Lena wiped sweat from her forehead. "Before we picked you up, we heard a broadcast. Military's setting up a safe zone outside the city. They're taking in survivors." Aiden's pulse quickened. A military safe zone? A real place of safety? It sounded too good to be true. But right now, it was their only hope. Where is it? An old industrial site near the city's outskirts. If we can get Jonas there, they might have medics. Aiden didn't argue. He pressed the gas pedal harder, weaving through wrecked cars and piles of bodies in the streets. The city was nothing but a graveyard now. Fires raged unchecked, the air thick with smoke and death. In the rearview mirror, he saw shambling figures dragging themselves toward the sound of the engine. The road ahead led to a highway overpass, and beyond it, the supposed safe zone. The closer they got, the more signs they saw: military barricades, abandoned Humvees, and hastily scrawled messages on walls: "Keep moving, safe zone ahead, trust the military." But there were also bodies. Lots of them. Soldiers, civilians, some half-eaten, some still clutching weapons they never got to fire. Aiden's stomach twisted. "This doesn't look good," he muttered. Lena clenched her jaw. "We don't have a choice." The SUV rolled over a section of spiked barricades, the tires crunching on broken glass. Ahead, they saw it, the entrance to the safe zone. A massive chain-link fence lined with barbed wire surrounded the area. Military trucks and sandbag barriers blocked the entrance, but the gates were wide open. No soldiers. No guards. Just silence. Aiden turned to Lena. "This isn't right." She didn't answer. She just looked at Jonas, whose breathing was becoming shallower. "We need to get him inside." Aiden hesitated. He could feel it, the heavy, suffocating air of a trap. But what choice did they have? Taking a deep breath, he drove through the open gates. Inside, the industrial site had been turned into a makeshift refugee camp. Rows of tents and military crates were scattered across the concrete lot. Bloodstains marked the ground, and some of the tents had been torn open from the inside. Aiden parked near an empty medical tent. Lena jumped out, rushing to Jonas. "Help me get him inside." Aiden hesitated again. His instincts were screaming at him to leave. But he couldn't just abandon them. He grabbed Jonas's other arm, helping Lena carry him into the tent. Inside, the medical supplies were scattered, as if someone had left in a hurry. Blood smeared the walls. The place had been abandoned for a while. Lena grabbed bandages and alcohol from a toppled medical tray. "We can still save him." Aiden wasn't so sure. Then, a noise outside. A heavy metal clang. Footsteps. Aiden grabbed a scalpel from a nearby tray, his only weapon. He peeked out through the tent's entrance. At first, he saw nothing. Then, movement near one of the military trucks. A figure in a tattered uniform. A soldier. Aiden felt a rush of relief. "Hey! Over here!" The figure turned. His heart stopped. The soldier's face was gray, his eyes lifeless. His uniform was soaked in dried blood. He staggered forward, his jaw hanging open unnaturally. Then another figure appeared. And another. More soldiers. More infected. Lena's voice trembled behind him. No. The safe zone wasn't safe at all. It was a feeding ground. And they had just walked straight into it. Aiden's breath caught in his throat as the undead soldiers turned toward him. Their bloodied uniforms hung in tatters, their boots scraping against the concrete. Some had deep bite marks on their arms and necks, others had chunks of flesh missing, but they all had the same lifeless, hungry stare. They had been the last line of defense. And now, they were the threat. "Aiden, what's wrong?" Lena's voice came from behind him. He didn't have time to answer. The first soldier lunged, letting out a guttural snarl. "Get back!" Aiden stumbled into the tent, knocking over a metal tray. He barely had time to react before the thing crashed through the entrance, its decayed fingers reaching for him. Lena screamed. Aiden swung wildly with the scalpel he had grabbed earlier, slicing through the air. The blade barely slowed the creature down. It lunged again, jaws snapping. Bang! A gunshot rang out. The soldier's head snapped backward, and it crumpled to the floor. Aiden turned to see Lena holding a pistol, her hands shaking. She must have found it among the medical supplies. But there was no time to celebrate. More were coming. Jonas groaned from the cot, barely conscious. What's happening? Aiden and Lena exchanged a look. They couldn't carry him and fight at the same time. They had to move, now. "Jonas, can you stand?" Aiden asked, his voice urgent. Jonas tried, but his wound was too severe. He collapsed back onto the cot, coughing weakly. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "We can't leave him." Aiden knew the truth. If they stayed, they all died. The groaning outside grew louder. Shadows passed by the tent's walls. The infected were closing in. "We need a plan," Aiden whispered. Lena wiped her tears away and nodded. "The SUV. We make a run for it." Aiden's mind raced. The vehicle was parked just outside, but the undead were already swarming the area. They needed a distraction. His eyes darted around the tent, landing on a stack of oxygen tanks in the corner. That could work. "Lena, help Jonas while I set something up." He rushed to the tanks, his hands fumbling. If he could create an explosion, it would draw the zombies away, or at least buy them enough time to escape. Lena struggled to get Jonas onto his feet, half carrying him. "Hurry, Aiden." The undead were seconds away from pushing into the tent. Aiden grabbed a scalpel and jammed it into the valve of one of the tanks. Gas hissed into the air. He turned and ran toward Lena. "Move! Now!" The first zombie pushed through the entrance. Lena fired, dropping it instantly. But more came. Aiden didn't wait. He pulled Lena and Jonas toward the SUV, their feet slipping on the bloodied concrete. Behind them, the gas-filled tent reached a breaking point. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the safe zone. Fire and smoke erupted into the sky, sending body parts flying. The blast knocked some of the undead off their feet, while others staggered in confusion. Aiden barely had time to register the destruction before they reached the SUV. He threw open the driver's door and jumped in. Lena helped Jonas into the back seat and climbed into the passenger side. Aiden turned the key. The engine sputtered. No. Not now. He twisted it again. Come on, come on, come on. A loud snarl sounded outside. A soldier zombie slammed against the window, its face inches from Lena's. Aiden twisted the key one last time. The engine roared to life. He floored the gas pedal. The SUV tore forward, smashing through a group of zombies as they burst through the gates of the dead safe zone. They were free. But as Aiden glanced in the rearview mirror, watching the burning camp shrink behind them, he knew one thing for certain. There was nowhere left to run. The SUV roared down the desolate highway, its tires screeching as Aiden swerved around abandoned cars and scattered debris. The glow of the burning safe zone faded into the distance, but the horror of what they had seen lingered in the air like a ghost. Lena sat in the passenger seat, her hands gripping the pistol tightly. Jonas lay in the back, his breathing ragged, his wound worsening by the minute. The faint rise and fall of his chest was the only thing confirming he was still alive. Aiden's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. We need a new plan. Lena wiped sweat from her forehead. The safe zone was our only plan. Aiden exhaled sharply. She was right. They had nowhere else to go. Jonas groaned from the back. Water. Lena turned, grabbing a half-empty bottle from the floor and pressing it to his lips. Drink slowly. Aiden glanced at the fuel gauge. Half a tank left. Not great, but enough to get them far away from the city. We need supplies. A safe place to regroup. Lena nodded. There's a small town about 20 miles from here. Could be something there. Aiden didn't like the idea of stopping, but Jonas wouldn't survive without medical help. They had no choice. The checkpoint. The highway stretched ahead, eerily empty. No signs of life. Just miles of cracked asphalt and overturned vehicles. Then they saw it. A makeshift military checkpoint blocking the road. Aiden slowed the SUV, scanning the area. Concrete barriers, sandbags, and rusted wire fencing surrounded the checkpoint. Military trucks sat abandoned, doors hanging open. A watchtower overlooked the road, but it was dark and empty. Lena shifted uneasily. What do you think? Aiden frowned. Could be more supplies. Weapons. Maybe even medical gear. Jonas coughed weakly from the back. Risky. Aiden knew that. But was there really a safer option? Lena tightened her grip on her pistol. We check it out, fast and quiet. Aiden nodded. He pulled the SUV to a stop just outside the barrier. The three of them stepped out cautiously, weapons ready. The checkpoint was eerily silent. Aiden crept toward the first military truck. Inside, the seats were stained with dried blood. A rifle lay on the passenger side, but the clip was missing. He grabbed it anyway. Lena checked another truck, finding a first aid kit with bandages and painkillers. This will help Jonas. Aiden was about to reply when... Bang! Bang! Gunfire. Aiden dove behind the truck, his heart hammering. Lena crouched beside him, eyes wide. Where? More shots rang out, ricocheting off the metal barriers. Then a voice shouted, "Drop your weapons. Now!" Aiden peeked out from behind the truck. Survivors. 3 figures emerged from the watchtower, 2 men and a woman, all armed. They wore mismatched gear, military vests over civilian clothing, their faces hard and untrusting. Aiden raised his hands slowly. We don't want trouble. The lead man, tall with a scar down his cheek, narrowed his eyes. Then why are you raiding our checkpoint? Lena clenched her jaw. We're just looking for medical supplies. Our friend is injured. The woman with them scoffed. Yeah? And what stops you from shooting us in the back once you get what you want? Aiden exchanged a glance with Lena. These weren't just random survivors, they were desperate survivors. The scarred man took a step forward. Here's the deal. Drop your weapons, and maybe we let you live. Aiden's pulse quickened. He could tell from the look in the man's eyes, they weren't walking away from this alive. Lena tensed beside him. Aiden. Aiden made his decision. Run. Before the survivors could react, Aiden grabbed a smoke grenade from the truck and yanked the pin. He threw it toward them, and thick black smoke erupted between them. Chaos followed. Gunfire cracked through the air. Lena grabbed Jonas, hauling him toward the SUV. Aiden sprinted behind them, bullets whizzing past his head. He threw open the driver's door and leaped inside. Go! Go! Lena shoved Jonas into the back and slammed the door shut. Aiden floored the gas. The SUV spun in the dirt before rocketing forward, smashing through the barrier. Bullets hit the rear, shattering the taillight. They sped away, leaving the checkpoint behind. Inside the SUV, Aiden's heart pounded in his chest. Lena stared ahead, her face pale. People are just as dangerous as the dead. Aiden gritted his teeth. No. They're worse. The SUV raced down the highway. There was no safe haven. Only the road to hell. The SUV sped down the darkened highway, its tires screeching against the cracked asphalt. Aiden kept one hand on the wheel and the other gripping the rifle he had taken from the military truck. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he glanced at the rearview mirror. No sign of the armed survivors. For now. Jonas groaned from the back seat, his face drenched in sweat. I don't feel so good. Lena leaned over him, unzipping the first aid kit she had taken from the checkpoint. He's burning up. She tore open a packet of painkillers and forced one into Jonas's mouth. Come on, swallow. Jonas weakly obeyed, his breath shallow. Aiden clenched his jaw. We need to stop soon. He's not gonna last much longer. Lena nodded, but neither of them had a solution. There was nowhere left to go. Suddenly, the headlights illuminated a massive roadblock. Aiden's gut twisted. Ahead, a line of abandoned cars, overturned buses, and makeshift barricades stretched across the entire road. There was no way around it, thick forest flanked both sides of the highway. Aiden slammed the brakes, the SUV skidding to a stop. The eerie silence that followed sent a chill down his spine. Lena whispered, "This isn't random. Someone set this up." Aiden exhaled sharply, gripping the rifle tighter. Yeah. And I don't think we're alone. As if on cue, shadows moved in the trees. Then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Aiden's stomach dropped. He reached for the gear shift. We're turning around. Bang! A bullet shattered the windshield. Out! Out! Aiden shouted, throwing open his door. Lena scrambled to pull Jonas out as figures emerged from the darkness, at least a dozen survivors, armed to the teeth. A man with a thick beard and a bulletproof vest stepped forward. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something dangerous. You're driving on our road. His voice was smooth, almost friendly. That means you pay the toll. Lena's breath hitched. We don't have anything. The bearded man tilted his head, inspecting them. Oh, I think you do. His gaze landed on Jonas, then on the SUV. A vehicle, weapons, supplies, those are worth something. Aiden tightened his grip on the rifle. Not for sale. The man sighed. See, that's where we have a problem. He motioned to his group. Guns were raised. Lena swallowed hard. You don't have to do this. The man smirked. In case you haven't noticed, sweetheart, there's no have to anymore. There's only survive or die. Aiden's mind raced. They couldn't fight. They were outnumbered. But if they surrendered, they were as good as dead. Then, something changed. A distant growl. Aiden's blood ran cold. The bearded man frowned. What the hell was that? The growl turned into moans. Then, screams. The undead were coming. One of the raiders shouted, "Shit! They're here!" Aiden didn't waste a second. "Lena, run!" The forest exploded with movement. A wave of zombies crashed through the trees, their rotting bodies surging toward the living. Gunfire erupted as the raiders opened fire, but it was useless. There were too many. Aiden grabbed Jonas and threw him over his shoulder, ignoring the pain in his muscles. Lena fired at a raider who tried to grab her, the bullet tearing through his shoulder. She spun and ran, following Aiden into the chaos. The world turned into a blur of screams, gunfire, and the guttural snarls of the undead. Aiden's lungs burned as he sprinted toward a clearing. He didn't stop. Couldn't stop. A raider tackled him from the side. They tumbled to the ground, Jonas rolling away. The man snarled, trying to wrestle Aiden's rifle away. And then a zombie tore into his throat. Aiden recoiled as blood sprayed across his face. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing Jonas again. "Lena," he shouted. She was ahead, reaching a crumbling farmhouse at the edge of the clearing. Aiden pushed forward, his legs screaming in protest. Behind him, the raiders were being ripped apart. The air was filled with their dying screams. Aiden didn't look back. He reached the farmhouse just as Lena kicked the door open. They stumbled inside. Aiden dropped Jonas onto the wooden floor, slamming the door shut. The undead swarmed past the house, chasing the last of the screaming raiders. Inside, the three of them gasped for breath. For now, they were safe. But Aiden knew the truth. Nowhere is safe. The farmhouse was eerily silent except for the distant snarls of the undead outside. Aiden pressed his back against the door, his heart hammering in his chest. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he listened to the sound of the zombies tearing apart the raiders outside. Lena collapsed onto the floor, clutching the pistol in her shaking hands. "We barely made it," she whispered. Jonas let out a weak groan, his fever worsening. His skin was clammy, his breath shallow. He wouldn't last much longer without proper medical attention. Aiden scanned the room. Dust-covered furniture, a broken-down fireplace, and shattered windows. There was no food, no supplies, nothing useful. Just another dead place in a dying world. Then, a thud upstairs. Lena's head snapped up. "Did you hear that?" Aiden raised his rifle. "Yeah." Another thud. Followed by a slow, dragging shuffle. They weren't alone. Aiden signaled for Lena to stay with Jonas. He moved toward the staircase, stepping carefully over creaky wooden boards. As he climbed, the air grew thick with the stench of rot. At the top, a hallway stretched ahead, doors hanging open. Aiden's grip tightened around the rifle. Then, a figure stepped into view. A zombie. Its body was frail, its clothes torn and stained. But there was something different about this one. It wasn't attacking. It just stood there, staring at Aiden with cloudy, lifeless eyes. It swayed slightly, as if waiting. Aiden's finger hovered over the trigger. Then the floor creaked behind him. He spun just in time to see another one. And then another. His stomach dropped. They were everywhere. The entire upper floor was filled with silent, waiting undead. Aiden's pulse pounded in his ears. "Lena, run!" He fired. The rifle's blast shattered the silence, ripping through the first zombie's head. The others lurched forward. Aiden bolted down the stairs, the sound of rotting feet pounding behind him. "We have to go, now!" Lena grabbed Jonas and hauled him up. "We can't outrun them. He's too weak." Aiden's mind raced. He looked at the front door, no way out. The undead outside would tear them apart. Then his eyes darted to the cellar door. "Down here," he shouted. Lena didn't hesitate. She dragged Jonas toward the cellar entrance, throwing it open. Aiden covered her, firing into the horde as they stormed down the stairs. Lena and Jonas disappeared into the darkness. Aiden took one last shot before diving in after them, slamming the heavy wooden door shut. Total darkness. Only their ragged breaths filled the air. Aiden pressed his back against the door, feeling the vibrations of the undead slamming against it. The wood groaned under the pressure. Lena gasped. "They're gonna break through." Aiden's mind spun. Think. Then he spotted something in the dim glow of his rifle's flashlight. A tunnel. A hole had been dug into the stone wall, leading into the unknown. Aiden turned to Lena. "We have one chance." Lena looked at Jonas, barely clinging to life. She nodded. "Let's go." They didn't have a choice. With the sound of the undead breaking through behind them, they plunged into the darkness. Not knowing where it led. Not knowing if they would survive. Only knowing one thing. The apocalypse wasn't over. It was just beginning.